We got a bidet!
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In this week's Shoot the Sheev podcast, we are talking about a show that you may not know is a thing. It's kind of a niche series. I don't know if you guys have seen the Lego series. There's a whole bunch of them that are out there for shows on Disney Plus. And the one we're talking about today is Lego Droid Tales. Lego Droid Tales came out, I think we saw in 2015. And then I remember seeing this being advertised and not really knowing what it was and thinking, I guess I'll just watch it. You know, it's Star Wars is Star Wars to some degree. And so I was not disappointed, to say the least. I think, Sarah, when I rewatched it, it was your first time seeing it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't recall seeing this before.
Gotcha. So if you don't know what the Droid Tales is, basically, the Battle of Endor has just ended, and there's the big party at the end of Return of the Jedi, and they're all cleaning up, and the Rebel Alliance group wants to hear the story of C-3PO and R2-D2's early adventures, and so it kind of starts off with that, with their retelling of the prequel trilogy, and then we have kind of this other plot in the background happening as well, where somebody stole some stuff and also stole Admiral Akbar's newest ship, and they have to go and find him find this person because they also kidnapped R2-D2. So once they finally eventually catch up with that person, and then they also get tangled in with the Empire at one point, and basically as 3PO is going to all these different people, he is sharing the story of the original 1 through 6 films, and then a little bit of the animated series as well, because we do get to see Rebels featured in here at one point too. So, you may be wondering, this is 5 episodes, so 25 minutes apiece, and we cover 6 movies, 1 animated TV show, and then also this background plot. How in the world did they fit all of that into 5 25-minute episodes, which those 25 minutes include credits, so it's even less. And basically, it's a very, very fast-paced version of Star Wars, and it's also they take some liberties with it a time or two as well. With mixing in different characters in other scenes. So, like, for example, the battle above Coruscant, when Palpatine was taken kidnapped, and, Anakin and Obi-Wan go to fight Dooku. Well, later on in that space battle, they go to the bridge and fight Grievous and his droids. But for this show, they just kind of packed it all into one. And so, like, Anakin fights Dooku and Obi-Wan fights Grievous, and things go crazy and whatnot. So that's kind of a little bit of a taste of how sometimes they change things a little bit, but it's kind of right up that alley. Maybe it is a way, because 3PO wasn't there, right? It was R2 that was there. So maybe this is kind of like, how if you tell somebody a story and then they go to tell somebody else and some of the information gets messed up, maybe that's kind of what's happening.
I think you might be right on maybe it being kind of 3PO's interpretation of things, because there's another one that comes to mind in terms of things that were kind of glazed over, and that's the battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan when he's turning to the dark side. Like, that battle basically took place in, I don't know, 5 seconds or something like that. Like, it's not nearly as long as it was in the original films.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is shortened considerably. it's like lightsaber battles are like clash clash over kind of a thing. Um, but I think what's the bread and butter of this show um, is that there's some interesting comedy that's thrown into. Not only is it just like Lego comedy, like if you play the video games and you can see what kind of funny stuff they do there, but there's some like super quick comedy where if because the show is moving so fast, if you're not paying attention, you'll probably miss something. And so I think that's one of the things I can really appreciate. We'll talk about that more and things we liked, but again, just trying to paint the picture of what this show is. If you wanted to go check it out, it's a very fast-paced retelling of the movies and some of the shows, and there's some pretty funny comedy throughout. Um,
I do really enjoy the Lego Star Wars humor. It's just the way they poke fun at things. I'll even give an example because this particular one really sticks out to me, and that's from I think it's from episode six. Episode six of the movies, not episode six of Droid Tales, because there is no episode six of Droid Tales. There's only five episodes. Uh, but it's the scene where Luke is getting ready to save Han before he gets thrown in the Sarlacc pit, and you hear what is that instrument? Like a trombone or something? Tuba.
Seemed like
So
a tuba he was playing.
oh yeah. So you hear the tuba noise of like when they're looking at each other like burp, 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 as they're looking to the different characters to make sure everybody's ready for the plan. This is something that was made fun of in Family Guy too, when they did the Family Guy Star Wars. But they took it one step further and had the waiter that had been poking at Vader earlier in the episode. They had him playing a tuba, like just to just to make it just to poke a little bit more fun at what was supposed to be like a really serious moment. And just I don't know, I just think it's hilarious.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of times things come in threes, and I'm pretty sure that was his third thing he did in the show. Because like the first thing he did was Vader was supposed to be the surprise on Cloud City to Han Solo and all them, and he kept interrupting Vader about the meal specials of the day, and Vader was going to lose his big moment of introducing himself to the rebels. And then he interrupted the moment of him saying to Luke that he was his father. And then we had this third one where, he's the one playing the instrument. Um, so again, that's kind of a good way to, talk about what kind of comedy is going on in the show. There are tons of other Lego shows out there, but I think this one is probably my favorite, probably because some of the other ones are like really out there where they don't care about mixing things like Darth Vader versus I don't know Mace Windu or something like that. They'll do weird things like that where it's more of a sandbox. Whereas this show it's more of a concise retelling. It's something that could happen in canon, kind of a thing. So I really like that part of it. Um,
Do you know, are there other Lego shows that are themed? Like, okay, like I know there's Lego Ninjago, right? But that's like a Lego property, not Lego Star Wars. Like, is there like a Lego Indiana Jones show or a Lego Harry Potter show
there's
or,
a Lego Jurassic World show. I can tell you that.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a Lego DC as well. I don't think there's a Lego Harry Potter or what was the other
Indy.
one you just said?
Indy.
No, I don't think there's a Lego Indie as well. But there's a couple of them, and I haven't watched a whole lot of the others, but I mean, I would be interested. I love the Lego stuff. Um, there was one other thing I was gonna say. I slipped my mind.
Oh, I distracted you. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Maybe it'll come back. So I guess some other things to talk about with this. Um, some of like so we just talked about not too long ago, we talked about like the Lego Star Wars video games, right? And we talked about some of the originals. And what's kind of funny is we were talking about in Lego Star Wars 1 that when they did Attack of the Clones, they started in like the middle of the movie. Well, when they go to retell the Phantom Menace, they start in the middle of the movie because they make fun of it. Like that's what I wanted to say. What's funny about this show is that they really like to make fun of the things that maybe don't make a whole lot of sense in Star Wars. It's kind of like one of those things that we just kind of glaze over just to, get on with the cool action sequences sometimes. And so what's kind of interesting is when 3PO went to start telling the rebels about the story, he actually started at the beginning of the Phantom Menace, but he was like, world of politics, trade federations, and then everybody fell asleep because they didn't want to hear about taxes and stuff. And so he was like, oh, I'll just cut to the part where I jump in. And then that's when Vader, as a kid, starts his story. And so that's when people started paying attention. And that's also when Han was like, what? Vader is Luke's father? Or something like that. Like you don't think about it, but there's nowhere in the movies where they actually show us the moment that he realizes that Vader is Luke or Leia's father. I don't know if you noticed that.
What do you mean by that?
So like Luke tells Leia, that Vader is his father, and he tells her that Leia is his sister. So she has some sort of idea that Vader is their father. But there isn't a part in the original films where Luke or Leia tell Han that Vader was either Luke's father or Leia's father.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right because she tells Han that Luke is her brother,
Right.
but I don't think she ever actually tells Han in the films that Darth Vader is their father.
I don't think so either.
Right.
I was trying to think of that, like a lot of those conversations happen between Luke and Leia and not with like Han in the room. And so I yeah, I don't think he did. I think I have to rewatch Return of the Jedi, but I also think that it is true because why would they make fun of it, in this show? Kind of
Yeah.
a thing. So there's stuff like that. There was also one where Emperor Palpatine was talking to Newt Gunray and his sidekick dude, and it's the part where he's explaining that the Queen has to sign the treaty for them to like move on with their plan. And the Newt Gunray and them were like, why? Why does she have to sign this treaty? What is this treaty all about? And it's like, yeah, why does she have to sign this treaty? Is that what exactly is it, and how would it affect what's going on? Like, would the treaty allow them to do some sort of like weird taxing or whatever, or what? And so I think it's kind of funny that they make fun of that in the show because it's something that's really not dived into deeply into the movie. It's just kind of there to progress the film.
Yeah, they definitely took some interesting twists or turns with the story in terms of uh how they interpreted it or their interpretive retelling of the story. Um I don't know, it was a fun watch. Even though it was different and it didn't cover everything, I feel like they covered a lot of the most important things, I would say. I don't feel like there's anything super important that, you know, but one thing that I kind of wonder about is let's say, we go to watch this with our nephews. They've either never seen all of the Star Wars movies, because I think they may have only seen number four, or maybe they've seen the rest, I'm not sure, but they're at an age where they probably don't remember or don't understand all of the films. Would they be able to understand this story? Because it's told so fast and a lot of things are glazed over. And you and I know what's going on because we've seen all the movies several times. We know exactly everything that's going on behind the scenes. It makes me wonder if somebody who doesn't really know that stuff, if they'd be able to follow it enough to still enjoy it.
Part of me wonders if it would be like Vader's on screen, yay! Who cares what he's doing, kind of a thing.
It could
Um,
be.
but on the flip side, kids like super fast things that cover just the amount of information that you need and then move on. So I don't know, maybe it would be a good way of doing it. I do know with some other movies, our nephews have been like, this is old. It looks old. So then they don't want to watch it. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. Maybe a 4K version won't make it look so old, but who knows? When we come back, we're going to talk about some tough love for Droid Tales. So stick around. Have you seen The Mandalorian? Do you wonder what Operation Cinder was that they mentioned in the show? Well, we got you covered because we have an entire playlist dedicated to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which highlights Operation Cinder. So if you check out our playlist, you'll be able to see what actually happened with Operation Cinder and know what they're talking about with the show. Now back to ours. Welcome back, everybody. We are here for our tough love section. For me, it's a little bit harder. I don't know a whole lot of things that I had tough love for, but Sarah had a couple that she wanted to at least kick it off with. So what did you got? Or what you got, Sarah?
So my first two are really kind of nitpicky things. They're not like really big things. One being I feel like some of the hair color choices for some of the characters was kind of weird. I know Anakin was one that his hair color throughout, being from a young boy to when he was older, it just seemed kind of weird. And I think it was Obi-Wan who they made his hair really red. I think it was him. It was, if not him, it was somebody else. But they made their hair really red. And I know it had like a red tinge to it, but like it seemed over the top. I don't know. Their hair colors just looked a little funky. Um, the other one was, I think I laughed out loud actually when I heard this for the first time, was Qui-Gon's voice actor. I'm not expecting it to be exactly Liam Neeson because I don't think any of these had their traditional voice actors. Did they even have that for Palpatine?
I don't think so. I think Lego has all its own different actors.
Okay, I thought they were all different, but the one that they picked for Qui-Gon just sounded so much like the narrator that was almost like the narrator was the one who was talking, and it might even be the same guy, and I kind of think it is the same like actual voice actor, but if that's the case, it is way too confusing to have the narrator be the same voice as one of the characters and have that character not be the one narrating the movie. Like, that's just weird. Why would you do that? It's like Qui-Gon was the one telling me the opening crawl every time.
Maybe he was.
But he
Would you
wasn't even alive for some of these.
would you agree or disagree that the character models were different than the Legos, like the actual Legos? I thought they looked pretty accurate, at least to what we've seen before.
Do you mean compared to like real life Legos?
That or just a Lego game, like the most recent one, because that would be the most comparable.
I feel like they were pretty spot on, with the exception of the hair colors being a little wonky. I feel like their outfits and like their costume design, if you will, if you want to call it that, looked pretty good. Yoda looked pretty good, considering he's in Lego form.
I will
Um,
agree, like throughout the years, I did think like Kenobi had a little bit of a weird, like not from the Phantom Menace, but like when he's actually Anakin's master, I would agree that there's kind of like this weird red, maybe like tomato soup looking color to his hair. So yeah, I could see that one a little bit.
yeah. So the kind of big one that I had was so the kind of the big tough love that I have is so in present day, while this story is being told, 3PO is telling a story, and Admiral Akbar is worried about his ship, the Daisy May, being stolen. So 3PO is going after R2, Admiral Akbar is going after his ship, who's he named Daisy May. But when 3PO is retelling one of the older stories, Admiral Akbar in that older story was talking about how he knows what it's like to have something precious. And he's looking at a picture of the Daisy May, which I thought was really weird because in present day, he was talking as if it was like her maiden voyage or like her first voyage. I don't know if I said that right. I don't know if that means their last voyage or their first voyage. But anyway, he was talking about it as if it was that ship's first trip. Like he was excited to test her out. He had saved up a long time. He finally got this new ship. It seemed like it was new. But then back when they're retelling one of the stories, in that old story, he's there talking about the ship that I thought he just got now. So, like, how could have he have had it in the story they're telling from before if the ship is new now? Does that make sense?
Eh, I don't know. um,
Are you at least following what I'm saying?
I know what you're trying to say.
It's hard to describe I feel like that meme of the guy with the red strings everywhere, like everything's all going all crazy. How is this connected to that?
Which is funny because that's what people say I'm like when I explain Star Wars to my friends.
uh,
I think if I,
but I guess if a confusion factor is my tough love, it seems weird. I don't feel like he should have had the ship in the past because I thought the ship was new.
one of the things that I think I didn't like so much was actually um the compensating for being able to have all these movies be covered in it, like how they were mixing different things. Some of them it just didn't really feel like it should. Um, I know we mentioned a couple of them, but there's some other ones. There was one where uh, for Return of the Jedi, when Luke and Leia are supposed to go on the speeder bikes and they take off and Han stays back and he's fighting with that one trooper. Um, Han actually jumps on a speeder bike himself and then they all go and then like 3PO and R2 are on their own like weird little thing. And it's just like that wasn't super necessary, but they wanted to be able to throw that one liner in there of well, you guys can't have all the fun. And it's like, well, that's what the movie was. I mean, it's okay, but I don't know. I think I would rather be a little more pure than mixing the things like the Grievous and Dooku thing. I thought that was kind of out of place. Um,
I
so
just thought it was funny to see Han and Chewie on a single speeder bike because Chewie was riding on the same one.
yeah, I mean, yeah, they are going for a comedic effect. I totally get it. It's just maybe it's just the Star Wars nerd in me that wants a little more of that integrity, but um, I don't know. At the end of the day, is it okay? Yeah. Do I lose sleep over it? No. But um, if I had to pick something, because I really don't have much of anything, I think that's probably what I would pick.
Yeah. I think it would bother me more if it was something more vital to the storytelling. Like if they made Han suddenly be the one that took down Darth Vader. Well, that would be a major story change. But with something like that, does it really change anything? Not really. I don't think so. At least with the speeder bike incident. In terms of mixing up the other two fights, like with Dooku and stuff, I don't know that it has a huge effect, really, does it?
No, I was gonna say, or Leia is the one that goes and takes down Vader and the Emperor. Are we gonna go there? No. Seems like one of the Disney things to do nowadays. But yeah, it's all right. It's fine. I still think it's a very funny show, and that's what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of one of those things, I guess, of where it's not just adding in a funny liner, or a funny one-liner, but like it's actually changing the story just a teeny bit. Maybe not something that's groundbreaking, but I can see where you're coming from.
One thing that or I guess it's considered two things, but the things that I didn't quite understand, and we've been watching Rebels, okay? When they showed the scene from Rebels, did you remember that?
I don't know that I remember the Rebels characters meeting the Skywalker series characters. I know they met Princess Leia at one point, um, and they had kind of some interactions with her, but like I don't remember them ever meeting like Luke or Han or Chewie or Lando or any of the rest of that group.
Well,
Um,
that wasn't it. There was like a section where it was just 3PO and R2, I believe, that interacted with Ezra and Zeb. I think Sabine and Hera. You can tell it's season one because of Ezra's hair.
that's true. He did have his
Um,
old hairstyle.
I was trying to think of like
And Kanan was not
blind.
yes. Spoiler alert. uh I did pick up on that it must have been season one because of the hairstyle and the not being blind thing. But I don't remember them running into those droids ever. The only character from that entire group that I remember them meeting was Princess Leia, and that's including the droids. I don't remember them meeting the droids before. Do you?
I remember them meeting the droids. I don't remember that being something that happened. So I feel like that was kind of I don't understand if that was something that actually happened or if it's something that they were actually trying to make up instead of actually calling back to something. Same thing with the Clone Wars reference, because there was a time where I thought they were rolling into episode 3, but they weren't. They were doing something else, so I didn't remember that from the Clone Wars. And maybe it's in there, maybe it's not, but
Do you
I don't
think
know.
it could be again just 3PO's interpretation of things, or maybe things that 3PO saw that we didn't necessarily see?
Could be. If that's what we're gonna run with, then maybe.
I think that's how I'm gonna sleep at night.
Probably how we're gonna have to. When we come back, we're gonna talk about things that we did like about the show, so stick around. Have you ever wondered what Amazon coffins are and what they're full of? Well, we got you covered here on the channel. Check out our playlist of our Amazon coffin unboxings, where Sarah and I open up boxes that have Amazon returns, and we share with all of you what we get in each of those boxes. If you ever wanted to get into liquidation and want to know what types of things you can find, check us out. Now back to our show. Welcome back, everybody. We are here to talk about things we did like about Lego Star Wars, the Droid Tales. I can kind of kick it off just by kind of saying the obvious. I just like that this was a really cool way of showing the Skywalker saga, essentially, within a very short amount of time. You pretty much get to experience episodes 1 through 6 from like 3PO's point of view, kind of a thing, in the amount of time it takes to watch like one Star Wars movie. So I think it's kind of a cool way to do that. If you have young ones that can't sit around for 2.5 hours for each movie, well, maybe you can sit them down long enough to watch this, and then they can kind of get the idea of what Star Wars is like. So maybe this is kind of a good way to create like a base knowledge for young ones, and then if they like this, then you can kind of segue them into the actual movies. So I think that they did a good job with that. They held my attention as an adult with it, just because I was always looking for that next witty thing that was around the corner. Um, so overall, it's definitely my favorite Lego Star Wars show. But yeah, really good stuff.
Biggest thing for me, which is kind of piggybacking off of what you said, is just the humor, the brand of humor that it is. Some of it is really witty, some of it is really silly, and some of it is just normal humor, I guess, so to speak. But like the way they poke fun at different things, um, for instance, and maybe we can kind of talk about a couple different instances here. But one that comes to mind right now is when Luke goes to Dagobah and he's looking for Yoda and he's talking about like what a dump this place is, and like I hope this Master Yoda doesn't live in that like trash heap or whatever he calls it, like just this really dirty uh cottage or swamp, and then of course that's where he is because that's where Master Yoda is. So Master Yoda's talking about how he can't teach him because he's too immature, or he needs to learn some manners first because he's really rude, and just silly things like that. The way that they relay those lines is much better than how I can relay them. Has a much better flow to it in the show. But there's even parts where they make fun of children just in general with the I'm better than you, no you're not, yes I am, no you're not, yes I am, like things like that. And I wouldn't say that it's overdone to the point where it's annoying. I think it's done just the right amount of times that it's funny, without being overkill. Um,
I was just
there
say, I probably one of the first really funny parts that I remember that you reacted to was like when Qui-Gon and all them were first meeting Anakin, and in the background, Watto was selling red flags for the race, and he was like, "Red flag, this is a red flag," and trying to, tell not only the audience but also the people around Anakin, like, this is a red flag, you should not be around this person, kind of a thing.
that was a really good one. Um, Another one of them that comes to mind is, Han Solo. He doesn't really like to listen to 3PO, that never tell me the odds and those types of things. And at one point, he tries to put the Millennium Falcon into light speed and it doesn't work. And 3PO's like, well, won't you ever listen to me? I tried telling you it wasn't plugged in. So then he plugs it in like as if it's like a vacuum cord. And then magically they have light speed working again. Like, nobody ever listens to 3PO, If you just listened to him, he would have told you that's why the light speed wasn't working.
Yeah, nobody wants to listen to 3PO. I don't know,
Um,
maybe 3PO comes across as a know-it-all sometimes and they just don't want to hear it.
what else? They poke fun at how Han and Leia are kind of at each other's throats and kind of almost mean to each other, but at the same time they love each other, which is kind of weird. And so the weird dynamic between those two. Um, Grievous or not Grievous, Emperor Palpatine, how he's always like, I know what you're thinking, Vader. He goes, you do? Okay, then tell me what I'm thinking. And he goes, we'll say at the same time. And of course, his response is delayed because he doesn't really know what Vader's thinking. Um,
Well, that's it's playing off of the thing where the Emperor is supposedly always one step ahead of everybody.
right. But in this case, he's not. Like he's
Right,
pretending to be, but he's really not, you know?
right. I'm trying to think
Uh,
of some other ones. I do remember when they were doing the back and forth of "No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not," kind of a thing. That's when they were like actually trying to point out immaturity in people. So that was kind of a funny way of doing it because they were like, Anakin's not mature enough or whatever to do this, and that's when they got into that back and forth of that stuff.
yeah. When they were introducing the pod racers, and so they were like, here's Anakin, who's never raced a day in his life. And then here's this other guy whose ship always breaks before the start of the race. And then his little ship explodes, or his little pod racer explodes before the race even starts.
Quadrant arrows.
Um, what's the guy the Anakin races against? I'm blanking.
The Bulba?
Sebulba, yeah. Sebulba attaches his ship like two Lego bricks to Anakin's ship. So Anakin breaks out one of those Lego removal tools, like something from the real world, to remove Sebulba's ship from his ship. That way they're not stuck together anymore. That was one of those where like you don't even have to say anything and it's kind of funny because like it's playing on the fact that they're Legos, not just the fact that it's Star Wars, you know?
Yeah, it's funny to see some of those real world things mixed in there. It's also showing like Lego flair into the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't do that in the movie, you know.
There was one where Han Solo stuck his hand up to 3PO and all their hands look like this, you know, because they're Lego hands. 3PO's like, I don't know what you're doing. And he goes, oh, these hands are always in the same position, you know, like he must have been telling him he was a loser or something more imaginative. Use your imagination.
Well, um, so one of the things that Han does a lot for his gestures, he goes like this. Like maybe that's his way of saying like quiet or shush or
Hold
give,
on a minute.
yeah. So I wonder if that's what he was doing.
It could
Um,
have been.
because that's actually right around that scene where 3PO was trying to say something to him and he put the one finger up of hold on. But that's kind of like the things that we just kind of accept in Star Wars, like how we were talking about the treaty thing and how that's just kind of glazed over and whatnot. I think that's kind of one of those things too, where it just kind of happened and we're like, oh, we know what he's trying to do, and we're just gonna interpret it as that way and move on, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Or when they saw Darth Maul and they're like, well, that's a funny way to hold a single bladed lightsaber. Oh my gosh, there's two lightsabers. There's two
Yeah,
blades.
all of us in 1999. I believe it was 99. Yeah, 990205. Yeah, but
A lot of really fun humor, all different kinds.
yeah, it makes me want to replay the Lego Star Wars game because I feel like there's probably a lot of that humor still in there that we've forgotten and we can enjoy once again. But who knows? We got so much stuff that we've been playing and covering. That might be something that gets put on the back burner. Um, yeah. So, I mean, that was a handful of things that we liked about the show. Just want to reiterate, like I said, it's just a fun little thing to watch. I mean, us as adults, we enjoyed it. If you want to get some young family members into Star Wars, it's a great way to do it. And not only this show, but also if you played uh, Lego Star Wars for, video games and stuff like that. It's just a fun, different angle that kids can get into Star Wars. And then maybe once they get older, start to appreciate these films a little bit more. Because remember, Star Wars is a kids' movie. That's what George Lucas intended it to be. So, in the end, we got to get kids into it, kind of a thing. But yeah, so that's the things that we liked. And then when we come back, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So stick around. Have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up during the prequel era? Do you wonder what type of merchandise was around then? How different was it than it is now? Check out our videos on this channel where we talk about the merchandise of the Phantom Menace and the merchandise of Attack of the Clones. They are here on this channel. The Phantom Menace is my first video ever on YouTube, so there's a special place in my heart for that one. So please, if any, check that out. Now back to our show. Welcome back, everybody. We are here to kind of close up some of this stuff for Lego Star Wars Droid Tales. One thing that I want to point out, and we kind of had this discussion when we were on break and whatnot, is that supposedly there are sources out there that say that there is a season 2 for Lego Star Wars Droid Tales. I decided to deep dive a little bit further into it just because some of the titles of the episodes for season 2 sounded familiar and seemed kind of out of place. And these sources that are saying that there's a season 2 for Droid Tales, they're actually episodes from other Lego Star Wars shows, not specifically Droid Tales. So, for instance, one of them is called Clash of the Skywalkers, and that's actually from a separate Lego Star Wars show called Yoda Chronicles. And so I think the other ones are also probably in line with that. All of which you can watch on Disney Plus. Those are kind of those Lego Star Wars shows where I was talking earlier, where they kind of just mash different Star Wars things for no reason together, and just try to have a good time. So if you ever see that there's some sort of season two, it's not them covering the sequel trilogy or anything like that. It's just a misunderstanding, and it's not actually Droid Tales. So just wanted
That's
to
really good to know.
clarify all that for you guys.
Yeah, because I was curious too. On Disney Plus, there's only a season one, so it didn't make sense to me why I was seeing information online about a season two when it kind of seemed like it doesn't exist. And that makes more sense that they're online, those other sources are just mixing up other shows. So there are other ways to watch it, but you're not going to find it under Droid Tales.
Right.
One of the funny moments that I kind of forgot about or missed when we were talking about things we like was Vader was talking to the different bounty hunters because he wanted them to hunt down the Millennium Falcon so he could set up the sting operation to get Luke Skywalker, right? She's talking about whoever does it is going to get a really big prize. And I think is it Bosk?
Mm-hmm.
I thought so. So he looks down at Bosk's feet and you see he's got these like really long, overgrown, like dragon toenails. And he goes, maybe you could use them to find a pair of shoes to fit you. And he's just making fun of him because he's got bare feet with these ridiculously long toenails. I'm like, oh, poor Bosk.
I think in episode 5, I think one of the like Imperial officers kind of stare at his feet and then look up at him, and then he says something to them to like try to intimidate the officer, kind of a thing. So maybe that's kind of a play on what happened with that in a way, but yeah, kind of funny how they picked on him for it.
Yeah. Let's see. One of the other things that I think that we should probably go over is if you're watching this, you've probably seen all the Star Wars movies, is my guess. But if you haven't seen the Lego Star Wars Droid Tales and you're wondering what that extra like present day storyline is, because in this show they're kind of reliving the past a little bit, but there is a storyline that's happening in present day during this show. And that's where Admiral Akbar has a ship stolen, and R2 is stolen by this like guy wearing it's not a Sith robe, it's not a Jedi robe, but they're wearing some sort of like a dark robe, right? So you're trying to figure out who this is and what's going on. So I figure it's probably good for us to kind of go over what's happening there. And so Jeremy, correct me if I get any of this wrong. But essentially after Admiral Akbar and 3PO chase this guy through the galaxy, they wind up finding him. They find out that it's actually Lando Calrissian who is in this hooded cape, right? And he has been taking droids to sell them for parts. But he took R2 not to sell them for parts, but because he thought he could be useful in other ways to help him with his operations. And then as it turned, which I'm not sure why he was doing this other than just to make some extra money. But as it turns out, the buyer is the Empire trying to come back to fruition. So there's kind of a whole back and forth there. And then can you wrap up how it ends? I'm not really sure how it ends. I think they just kind of attacked the couple of stormtroopers that were there, and then that's it.
Well, no, they find a way to kind of get out of being like imprisoned, and then I think it was R2 that went and got the Millennium Falcon and then busted them out.
Oh yeah.
And then so they got in the Falcon, and as they were leaving, they found out that basically the Empire built a separatist droid mech like a big Power Rangers looking thing, and they seemed a little outmatched. And then that's when Admiral Akbar comes flying in on his special ship, Marie, whatever, Susie,
Daisy May.
Daisy May rides in on the Daisy May and saves the day. And then they're able to get away from the Empire once again. They do use an actual like Imperial general that you can see in the movies, General Veers. He's the one that led the attack on Hoth. So he's the one that's in the present day doing all that, which means he never died, which is kind of an interesting interpretation. Maybe we don't see his death or see whatever ends up happening to him after the Battle of Hoth, and then we get kind of that little bit of closure on that.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for tying up my loose ends there.
Yeah, it's kind of a interesting way to allow them to retell the story of Star Wars through 3PO's interpretations, but you got to have something in the background to try to get it going, you know? All right.
I was just gonna say, kind of like as a closing statement, I think it was a neat way to retell the stories and have something still going on, like to not just have it be like, well, back in my day, here's what happened, and then just, story vomit all over the place. Uh, I feel like it was pretty well balanced going back and forth between present day and what was going on in the past, and I don't know, it's just a fun retelling of those adventures.
Right. Well, that was our little discussion on Lego Star Wars Droid Tales. Again, if you've never seen it, it is on Disney Plus. I believe you can buy it on DVD as well, because I believe we have that on DVD. So there's a couple ways for you to check it out. It is worth your time. It is fun. It is funny, wonky, whatever you want to say. It's a good time, and that's all we need to know about Star Wars. So if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are doing Shoot the Sheev podcasts every Wednesday where we talk about a different Star Wars topic. We got tons of them planned for the road ahead. So make sure to check us out later on. Drops a like if you like the video and drops a comment letting us know if you've seen this show before, and if you have, what are your thoughts? And also, what other Lego Star Wars shows have you enjoyed a lot? We talked about this one here on the channel, and we'll probably talk about some of the other ones as well. But if there's ones that you really enjoyed before and you want to, have some conversation, drop it in the comments, and maybe we can pull that one further ahead in the list of things that we want to talk about. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.